I froze, my entire body trembling as my father's words rang in my ears like a death sentence. "You think you married Michael because of love?" he said with a smirk that didn't look like the man I once called my hero. "No, Emily. I sold you. 10 years ago, I gave your hand in marriage to my boss's son to pay off my debt." The room spun around me. My chest tightened, like someone had gripped my heart with an iron fist. 10 years. 10 wasted years of my life trapped in a marriage I never wanted, while the man I trusted most, my own father, watched me suffer in silence just to protect himself. A scream rose in my throat, but it died before leaving my lips. The betrayal was too sharp, too heavy, too monstrous for my voice to carry. My knees buckled, and I fell against the cold hardwood floor, gasping for air as the truth cut into me like a knife. And then came the words that shattered me completely. "You were never my daughter's happiness, Emily. You were my insurance." The world went black for a moment, but when I opened my eyes again, something inside me had already shifted. My tears dried before they could fall. My grief turned into something else, something darker, sharper, unbreakable. Revenge. But before I could even plan what to do, the front door burst open. And what I saw next nearly stopped my heart. My name is Emily Carter. I was born in a small town outside Chicago, to a family that looked perfect on the outside but was rotten at the core. My father, Richard Carter, was a businessman whose smile could charm anyone, but behind that smile was a man drowning in gambling debts. My mother, Helen, was gentle, kind, and always trying to protect me from his storms. Growing up, I never lacked food or clothes, but I lacked peace. The sound of glass shattering, my mother crying, my father shouting, those were the lullabies I grew up with. Still, I believed in fairy tales. I believed that when I was older, love would save me. I was 17 when I met Michael Donovan for the first time. He was tall, handsome, with a smile that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But there was something else, something that made me uneasy. His eyes didn't smile with the rest of his face. They were cold, like a man who already knew he owned the world. I didn't know then that my father had already sealed my fate. That night, when Michael's father shook my dad's hand, it wasn't just a business greeting. It was a contract, invisible but binding. And I was the price. At 18, I was forced into a marriage I never wanted. My father told me it was the only way to secure our family's future. My mother cried, begged him not to do it, but her voice was too small against his greed. The wedding was beautiful to everyone else, but to me it felt like a funeral. White roses, gold decorations, hundreds of smiling faces, all while I stood there, my soul sinking deeper with every vow I didn't mean. Michael was not the Prince Charming people thought he was. Behind closed doors, he was cruel. He controlled everything, what I wore, who I spoke to, where I went. If I disobeyed, the punishment came in sharp words that cut deeper than knives, sometimes in fists that left bruises I had to hide. To the world, we were the perfect couple. But inside those mansion walls, I was nothing more than a prisoner. Year after year, I hoped my father would rescue me. That maybe he'd regret the deal he made. That maybe he'd realize he'd stolen my life. But the truth was, he never looked back. He enjoyed the money and the status that came from marrying me off to the Donovans. And I endured it all, 10 long years of silence, humiliation, and pain. 10 years of wearing a mask so flawless the world never saw the cracks underneath. Until one evening, when everything changed. It was my 10th wedding anniversary. Michael had thrown a lavish party in our mansion. Politicians, businessmen, women in glittering gowns. It was the kind of night where people smiled too much and lied too easily. I smiled too, but inside, I was suffocating. I escaped to the garden, needing air, and that's when I saw my father standing alone, sipping his whiskey like a man without shame. Something inside me snapped, and I confronted him. I demanded the truth, all of it. And he gave it to me with a smirk, every word cutting deeper than the last. "You were never his wife out of choice. You were the price I had to pay. 10 years ago, I was drowning in debt. I had nothing. Your marriage saved me. You were nothing but collateral." Collateral. That word still echoes in my head. It was the night my world shattered. But before I could even let my rage explode, before I could scream and tell him I would destroy everything he held dear, the front door of the mansion burst open with a loud crash. Two police officers stormed inside, their hands already reaching for their guns. Guests screamed, glasses shattered, and the entire room froze. And then one of the officers shouted Michael's name. "Michael Donovan, you're under arrest." The words echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. Every guest froze. The music stopped, champagne glasses trembled in midair, and the air grew so thick I could hardly breathe. I turned to look at Michael, and for the first time in 10 years, I saw fear on his face. His usual arrogant smirk vanished, replaced with panic. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted wildly, and his hand twitched as if calculating whether to run or fight. "What the hell is this?" Michael barked, his voice sharp, trembling just enough for me to notice. "Do you know who I am?" The taller officer stepped forward, reading from a paper. "Michael Donovan, you're being charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent." "Shut up," Michael roared, cutting him off. "This is a mistake. My lawyers will eat you alive." He looked around the room, desperate, scanning the powerful guests he once controlled. But no one moved. No one defended him. They all looked away, suddenly strangers in his downfall. I should have felt fear, but instead I felt something else. A strange, burning satisfaction. For the first time in 10 years, Michael was cornered. For the first time, his power didn't protect him. And yet, fear did crawl up my spine. Because if Michael was going down, then so was my father. Their deal, their secrets, it was all tied together. "Emily," my father's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. He grabbed my arm so tight it left marks. "Say nothing. Do you hear me? Nothing." The officer shoved Michael's hands behind his back, snapping the cuffs on his wrists. Michael thrashed, furious, but it was useless. I stared at him, cuffed like a common criminal, and a part of me wanted to laugh. But another part whispered, "This is only the beginning." They dragged him out, his shouts echoing through the mansion. Guests whispered, pulling out their phones, already recording. The Donovan name was bleeding, and I knew blood like this attracted sharks. My father's face was pale. His forehead glistened with sweat. He looked like a man whose empire was about to collapse. And in that moment, I realized he wasn't worried about Michael. He was worried about himself. That night, I couldn't sleep. My hands shook as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of the cold, empty mansion. Michael was in custody. My father hadn't called since the arrest. My mother had sent one text, "Please, don't do anything reckless." But reckless was all I wanted to be. For years, I had been silent. For years, I swallowed pain like poison, believing it was the only way to survive. But now the walls around my cage were crumbling. And I had a choice: hide under the rubble or use it to crush the people who destroyed me. And deep down, I knew what I wanted: revenge. Still, questions haunted me. What exactly had Michael done? How much did my father know? And how much of my life had been destroyed for their greed? The next morning, I got my answer. News vans lined the street outside. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. I pulled my coat tighter around me as I walked past them, keeping my face down. Inside every grocery store, every diner, Michael's face flashed across the screens. Donovan Air arrested in massive fraud case. I thought I'd feel free, but I didn't. Because I knew the truth. Michael wasn't smart enough to orchestrate fraud this big. He was a bully, not a strategist. Which meant only one thing: someone else had been pulling the strings. And my gut told me who. I drove to my parents' house. My mother opened the door, her face pale and tired, her eyes swollen from crying. "Emily," she whispered, pulling me into her arms.
"Please don't get involved."
"Please." But I couldn't ignore the storm. My father sat in the living room, pouring whiskey at 10 a.m. His tie was loose, his eyes bloodshot, but when he looked at me, there was no guilt. Only anger. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. I stepped closer. How much of this mess is yours? He slammed the glass down so hard it cracked. Watch your mouth. 10 years of my life, Dad. 10 years you threw away to save yourself. And now Michael's being dragged through the mud, and you expect me to sit quietly again? His lips twisted into a bitter smile. Do you think I care about Michael? He was always going to fall. The Donovans are vultures. They use and discard. That's how the game works. My stomach turned.
And me?
What was I, Dad? His silence was louder than any confession. Something inside me snapped. I'm going to tell the truth. About everything. About the deal you made, the marriage, the lies. My father's eyes darkened, his voice dropping low, venomous. You open your mouth, Emily, and you won't survive the fallout. You think the Donovans are cruel? You have no idea what they'll do to protect their empire. You'll be nothing but collateral damage. Collateral. That word again. My hands curled into fists. And then, before I could speak, there was a loud bang against the door. My mother screamed, and I spun around. The front door burst open. 3 men in black suits stormed inside, faces hard, eyes sharp. They didn't look like police. They looked like men who answered to no law but power. The tallest one stepped forward, his voice calm but cold. Emily Carter, you're coming with us. My heart hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. The 3 men filled the living room like shadows, their presence suffocating. My mother clutched my arm, trembling, while my father just sat there, silent, sipping his whiskey as if he'd been expecting them. Who are you? I demanded, trying to steady my voice, though my knees felt like they would buckle. The tall one, broad shoulders, ice-cold eyes, pulled out a folded envelope and tossed it onto the table. We work for the Donovan family. You've been summoned. Summoned. My voice cracked. Yes, he said flatly. You're coming with us. Now. My mother stepped in front of me. No, she's not. You can't just barge in here. One of the men shoved her aside. She stumbled, hitting the floor with a cry. Rage exploded in me, hotter than fear. Don't touch her, I screamed, moving toward him, but the leader raised a hand, stopping me with just a look. This isn't negotiable, he said. The family wants answers. And if you don't come, we take your mother instead. My stomach turned to ice. My father finally spoke, his voice low, bitter. Go with them, Emily. It's better this way. I spun toward him, my eyes wide with disbelief. Better for who? For you? He didn't answer. He just poured another drink. The men escorted me outside, their grip firm on my arms. The world blurred as neighbors peeked through curtains and cameras from the press tried to catch a glimpse. They shoved me into the back of a black SUV, the doors slamming shut like prison gates. We drove in silence for nearly an hour, the city disappearing behind us, replaced by long, empty roads. My mind raced. What did the Donovans want with me? Michael was already in jail. Why drag me into this? Unless they knew the truth. Unless they knew my marriage was nothing more than a debt contract. The car finally stopped at a secluded estate, a mansion twice the size of Michael's, surrounded by high walls and armed guards. My throat tightened. This wasn't just a family's home. It was a fortress. The men led me inside, through grand hallways filled with expensive paintings and marble floors. Everything screamed wealth and power, but also danger. In the main room, sitting on a velvet chair like a queen on a throne, was Margaret Donovan, Michael's mother. She was elegant, draped in silk, diamonds sparkling at her wrists. But her eyes were colder than her son's had ever been. Emily, she said smoothly, as if greeting an old friend. Sit. I sat, though every nerve in me screamed to run. You've been married to my son for 10 years, she began, her voice calm but sharp, each word slicing the air. And now he has embarrassed this family in the worst way possible.
Fraud.
Embezzlement. Headlines. Shame. Her fingers tightened on her glass of wine until I thought it would shatter. Tell me, dear, how much did you know? My mouth went dry. If I told the truth, I'd be confessing that I was forced into this life by my father's deal. If I lied, they'd see right through me. Either way, I was trapped. I didn't know anything, I whispered. Her eyes narrowed. Don't insult me. I swallowed hard. Michael never told me. He never trusted me enough to share his business. To him, I was nothing. Margaret leaned back, studying me. Perhaps you are telling the truth. Or perhaps you are smarter than you look. She took a sip of wine, then placed it down carefully. Either way, the damage is done. And you, my dear, are still a Donovan, which means you are not free from the consequences. Fear prickled my skin. What do you mean? She leaned forward, her smile as sharp as a knife. If my son goes down, everyone tied to him goes down with him, including you. But, her eyes gleamed, there may be a way to protect yourself. Help us. Tell us everything you know about your father's deal. My blood ran cold. You know? Her smile widened. Of course. Did you really think we didn't know what your father owed us? He was a desperate man. We gave him power. In return, we took you. Collateral. That word again. Collateral. My hands shook under the table. You want revenge, don't you? She whispered suddenly, her tone shifting, piercing straight through me. I can see it in your eyes. You hate your father. You hate my son.
So work with me.
Help me protect this family's name, and maybe I'll give you back your life. I stared at her, stunned. Was this real? Or just another trap? Before I could answer, the double doors slammed open. One of the guards rushed in, panic on his face. Ma'am, we've got a problem. Margaret's eyes snapped to him. What problem? It's Michael, the guard said, panting. He's dead. The room spun. My heart stopped. Margaret rose to her feet, her wine glass shattering to the floor. What did you just say? The guard swallowed. Michael Donovan is dead. They found him in his cell. Strangled. A gasp escaped my lips. Dead? My husband. The man who tormented me, who destroyed my life, who was supposed to rot in prison was gone.
Just like that.
But before the shock could settle, Margaret's cold eyes turned to me, blazing with suspicion and fury. You, she hissed. What did you do? My lips parted, but no sound came out. Margaret Donovan's eyes bored into me like daggers, her voice trembling with both rage and suspicion. You were the last crack in his armor, she spat. You hated him. You wanted him gone. Did you do this? No. My voice shook, louder than I intended. I didn't even know he was dead until just now. How could I have? Lies, she roared, slamming her hand against the table so hard the glass rattled. You've been nothing but poison in this family from the beginning. The guards stepped closer, circling me like vultures. My chest tightened, panic clawing at me. If I didn't think fast, this room could become my grave. I gained nothing from Michael's death. I cried. Nothing. If he's gone, I'm still trapped in this nightmare. Why would I kill him? Margaret studied me, her jaw tight, her chest rising and falling rapidly. For a long moment, silence filled the room except for the crackle of the fireplace. Then she sat back slowly, narrowing her eyes. Perhaps you didn't kill him, she said softly, almost to herself. But someone wanted to silence him. And that means someone wants to silence us. The thought chilled me. If Michael had been murdered in jail, then whoever killed him wasn't just erasing him. They were cleaning up loose ends. Which meant I could be next. Take her upstairs, Margaret ordered the guards. Keep her under watch until I decide what to do. The guards grabbed my arms and pulled me up the grand staircase. My heart pounded, my mind racing. A locked room. A cage. Again. 10 years in one prison, now another. Was this all my life would ever be? They shoved me inside a guest room and slammed the door behind me. I collapsed onto the bed, my chest heaving, tears blurring my vision. My husband was dead. My father had betrayed me. And now his betrayal had chained me to the very family who ruined me. But under the grief, under the fear, a darker feeling stirred. Rage. The Donovans thought they could break me. My father thought he could throw me away like trash. But I wasn't going to be anyone's collateral anymore. I would burn them all before I let them bury me alive. Hours passed. The sun sank, leaving the estate shrouded in shadows. I sat on the bed, staring at the door, listening to the faint footsteps of guards outside. My brain refused to stop spinning. If Michael had been strangled in prison, that meant someone inside wanted him gone. A cover-up. A silencing.
But why now?
And who benefited most? A sound broke my thoughts. The window creaked. My head snapped toward it, and my blood ran cold. A figure was climbing in. I scrambled back, my heart racing. The window slid fully open, and a man slipped inside, landing quietly on the floor. He wore black clothes, a hood pulled low, his face shadowed. "Stay away from me," I shouted, grabbing the nearest lamp like a weapon. "Shoo," the man hissed, raising his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you." His voice was deep, steady, but urgent. "Who are you?" I demanded. He pulled back his hood, and for the first time, I saw his face. Young, maybe early 30s. Strong jaw, sharp eyes, but there was something about him, something that felt familiar. "My name is Daniel," he said. "I worked for the Donovans once. Until they betrayed me." I gripped the lamp tighter, not trusting him. "Why are you here?" "To warn you," he said quickly. "Michael didn't kill himself. He was silenced. And you're next on their list." My breath caught. "What?" "The Donovans are cleaning house," Daniel continued. "Michael knew too much. And they think you do too. That's why they brought you here. Margaret's deciding whether to eliminate you or use you. But either way, you're a prisoner." His words sent chills down my spine, not because I didn't believe him, but because deep down I already knew. "Why should I trust you?" I asked. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Because I know your father's secret deal. I know how deep his debt was. And I know what the Donovans promised him in exchange for your life." My breath caught again. You know?" Daniel nodded. "And I can prove it. But we don't have much time. If you want to survive, you need to leave this place. Now." Every nerve in me screamed not to trust him. But the truth was, I had no other choice. Staying meant death. Running meant a chance, maybe the only one I'd ever get. I swallowed hard, my decision made. "Okay," I whispered. "Get me out of here." Daniel nodded once. He pulled something from his pocket, a small blade, and began working on the lock of the balcony doors. The cold night air rushed in as the doors swung open. "Stay quiet," he whispered. We slipped out onto the balcony, creeping along the side of the house. The guards' voices drifted from below, but the shadows kept us hidden. My heart pounded so hard I thought they'd hear it. Finally, we reached the ground, and Daniel led me toward the back of the estate, where a motorcycle waited in the dark. I climbed on behind him, clutching tightly as the engine roared to life. We sped off into the night, the estate shrinking behind us, swallowed by trees and shadows. For the first time in 10 years, I felt something close to freedom. But the feeling didn't last. Because just as we reached the highway, headlights flared behind us. A black SUV. Then another. Then another. They were coming. Daniel cursed under his breath. "Hold on," he shouted, swerving sharply. The wind whipped against my face, my hands gripping him tighter, fear tearing through me. The SUVs closed in, engines roaring, tires screeching. One pulled up alongside us, a gun glinting in the window. "Daniel!" I screamed. A shot rang out. The motorcycle wobbled violently. Daniel swore, fighting to keep control. I screamed as sparks flew, the bike tilting dangerously. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, everything was blurred. My ears rang, my body ached, and the world tilted sideways. For a moment I thought I was dead. Then the pain hit. Sharp, searing pain down my arm and leg. I gasped, my chest heaving, as the memory came flooding back. The motorcycle, the SUVs, the gunshot. I tried to sit up, but a voice stopped me. "Don't move. You'll make it worse." My vision cleared just enough to see Daniel crouched beside me. His face was smeared with dirt and blood, but his eyes were sharp, focused. We were hidden under an old bridge, the sound of rushing water nearby. What happened? I whispered, my throat dry. We crashed, Daniel said. But we're alive. Barely. He pressed a torn piece of his shirt against my bleeding arm. You'll be okay. It's not fatal. My breath shook. They shot at us. Of course they did, he muttered, glancing around. The Donovans don't leave loose ends. We got away for now, but they'll come again. I closed my eyes, tears slipping free. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep running. My whole life has been a prison. My father sold me, my husband broke me, and now his family is hunting me like an animal. Why me? Why does it always have to be me? Daniel's voice softened, but it carried a steel edge. Because you're the one who knows the truth. And the truth is dangerous. I opened my eyes, staring at him. Then, what's the point? Even if I survive, I've lost everything. My childhood, my marriage, my future. All because of them. He leaned closer, his voice steady. Then don't survive for them. Survive for you. Live long enough to watch them burn. His words struck something deep inside me. A spark. Revenge. I wiped my tears with my good hand, my chest rising with a new kind of fire. Then help me, I whispered. Help me destroy them. Daniel's lips curved into the faintest smile. That's why I came for you. We spent the night hiding, nursing wounds, waiting for the SUVs to vanish from the highways. By morning, Daniel led me into the city, to a rundown safe house tucked between abandoned buildings. Inside, he laid out papers, photographs, and files across a dusty table. My eyes widened as I saw names, dates, numbers, all tied to the Donovans. Offshore accounts, fake companies, criminal partners. This, Daniel said, tapping a file, is what Michael was arrested for. But it goes deeper. His father orchestrated everything. Michael is just a shield. Disposable. I felt my stomach twist. And my father? Daniel pulled another file. My blood froze when I saw Richard Carter's name plastered across the page. Your father was knee-deep in their mess. He owed them millions from gambling. They gave him a way out by handing you over. That's why he never looked back. You were the payment. The air left my lungs. Even though I had suspected it, seeing it in black and white tore me apart. My father hadn't just betrayed me. He sold me like property, like an object with a price tag. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my skin. I want him to pay. Both him and the Donovans. I want them ruined. Daniel nodded. Then you'll need to be stronger than you've ever been. This isn't just about revenge. It's about survival. Once we expose them, they'll fight back with everything they have. And trust me, they don't play fair. I met his gaze, my voice steady for the first time in years. Neither do I anymore. Days passed in hiding. Daniel trained me. How to move without being seen, how to listen without being noticed, how to fight back if cornered. My bruises faded, but the fire inside me grew hotter with every passing hour. At night, when I couldn't sleep, I stared at the files. The Donovans. My father. All of them tangled in lies and blood. I replayed my wedding day in my mind, the cage I had been forced into, the 10 years wasted in silence. No more silence. By the end of the week, Daniel placed a small recorder and a burner phone in my hand. It's time, he said. We can't take them down alone. We need leverage. We need evidence that even the courts can't ignore. My pulse quickened. And where do we get that? Daniel's eyes hardened. From your father. He keeps records. Receipts. He's paranoid. Men like him always are. If we can get our hands on his files, we can tie him directly to the Donovan's crimes. My chest tightened at the thought of facing him again. The man who had ruined my life. But maybe that was exactly why I had to. I'll do it, I said firmly. The plan was simple but dangerous. I would visit my parents' house, pretend I wanted to reconcile, and search for his hidden safe. Daniel would stay nearby, ready to extract me if things went wrong. The night we set it in motion, my hands trembled as I rang the doorbell. My mother opened the door, her face weary, her voice soft. Emily, you came back. Hi, Mom, I whispered, forcing a smile. I need to talk to Dad. She hesitated but stepped aside. My father was in his study, the air thick with cigar smoke. He didn't look surprised to see me. Well, he said, leaning back in his chair. The prodigal daughter returns. What do you want now? I force myself to stay calm. I want to understand. Why, Dad? Why did you give me away? He smirked, sipping his drink. Because you are worth something, Emily. More than you'll ever know.
You should thank me.
Without me, you'd be nothing. The hatred burned so hot inside me I thought it might choke me. But I kept my voice steady. I'm tired of fighting. I want peace. For the first time, he relaxed, leaning back. Good girl. Finally, some sense. While he gloated, I let my eyes wander. There, a small metal box half hidden behind books on a shelf. My heart pounded. The safe. I waited until he stepped out to refill his drink, then hurried to the shelf. My hands shook as I pulled the box free. I tried the handle locked. Frantic, I searched the desk drawers. Nothing. Then, in the top drawer, I found a small brass key. My pulse thundered as I fitted into the lock. The safe clicked open. Inside were stacks of documents, photos, USB drives. Proof. Everything we needed. But just as I reached for it, the study door creaked. My father stood there, his eyes narrowing as they fell on the open safe. For a moment, silence. Then his face twisted with rage. You little snake, he hissed. My father's eyes blazed as he stepped into the study, the door clicking shut behind him. The silence between us was so sharp it cut. You little snake, he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. You think you can steal from me? After everything I've done for you? Done for me. My voice shook with rage, my hands trembling over the open safe. You didn't do this for me. You sold me. You threw me to the wolves to save yourself. 10 years, Dad. 10 years of hell because of you. His smirk deepened, cruel and twisted. You survived, didn't you? Better than you would have without me. I gave you a future. No, I spat, my voice rising. You gave me a prison. He moved toward me, slow, deliberate, his shadow swallowing the light. Put the files back, Emily. Walk away. Pretend this never happened, and maybe I'll let you live. For a moment, fear nearly rooted me to the floor. But then I remembered Michael's fists, Margaret's threats, the cold cell where my husband had died, the blood on Daniel's face after the crash. And I remembered every night I cried myself to sleep, chained to a life I never chose. No more fear. No more silence. I grabbed the files, clutching them to my chest. I'm not walking away. Not this time. His face twisted in fury. Ungrateful brat. He lunged at me. His hand clamped around my wrist, the grip so tight it felt like my bones would snap. I screamed, struggling, shoving at him with all the strength I had. The paper scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. He slammed me against the desk, his face inches from mine, his breath reeking of whiskey. Do you think anyone will believe you? He snarled. You're nothing. You're weak. You're mine. No, I gasped, rage boiling hotter than the pain in my arm. Not anymore. My free hand landed on something cold, the brass key I'd used to open the safe. Without thinking, I gripped it tight and drove it upward into his neck. He let out a guttural cry, his eyes wide with shock, his grip loosening. Blood spurted, dark and hot, splattering across my hands, my face, the papers on the floor. He stumbled back, clutching his throat, choking, gasping. I watched him fall to his knees, his eyes locked on mine in disbelief. You wouldn't, he gurgled, blood bubbling from his lips. But I had. I stood over him, trembling, tears burning in my eyes. You were supposed to protect me, I whispered. But you destroyed me. And now I'm done being your collateral. His body convulsed once, then went still. The study was silent again, except for my ragged breathing and the steady drip of blood against the hardwood floor. I didn't have time to process what I'd done. Footsteps thundered outside. The guards. My mother's voice crying out in the hallway. Panic surged. I dropped to my knees, scooping the scattered documents back into the safe box. My hands slipped on the blood, smearing red across the pages, but I didn't care. Proof was proof. I grabbed everything I could and shoved it into a bag. The door burst open. Emily. My mother froze in the doorway, her hands flying to her mouth as her eyes fell on my father's lifeless body sprawled on the floor. For a heartbeat, her eyes flicked to me, to the blood on my hands, to the bag clutched against my chest. And then she nodded. "Go," she whispered hoarsely. "Run." Tears burned in my eyes as I ran past her, through the hall, down the stairs. Daniel was waiting outside in the shadows, his motorcycle hidden in the drive. His eyes widened when he saw the blood, but he didn't ask questions. "Do you have it?" he asked urgently. "Yes," I gasped, shoving the bag at him. "Then we finish this tonight." We didn't go back to the safe house. Instead, Daniel drove straight to a federal building in the city, the only place strong enough to withstand the Donovans' power. He strode in, bloody papers in hand, demanding to speak to investigators handling Michael Donovan's case. Within hours, the files were in government hands. Names, accounts, crimes, the entire Donovan empire laid bare. My father's part in it too. There would be no escape for them this time. I sat in the waiting room, my body numb, my clothes stiff with dried blood. Daniel sat beside me, silent, but his presence anchored me. A federal agent walked in, holding the files. His face was grave. This is enough to take down the Donovans for good. Witness protection will keep you safe until trial. You've done more than you realize, Miss Carter. For the first time in 10 years, I felt like chains were breaking. But freedom didn't come clean. Weeks later, I stood in a courtroom, my hands trembling as I testified. I spoke the truth I had buried for so long, the marriage, the deal, the abuse, the betrayal. Gasps filled the room, reporters scribbled, cameras flashed. The Donovans glared at me like wolves caged, but they couldn't touch me anymore. Margaret Donovan sat at the defense table, her face stone. When the judge declared bail denied, her eyes met mine. And for the first time, I saw fear in them. As for my father, his name would forever be stained in ink and blood. The man who sold his daughter to save himself was remembered not as a businessman, but as a traitor, to his family, to his bloodline, to me. That night, when the trial adjourned, Daniel walked me outside. The city lights glowed, the air crisp and clean. "You're free now," he said softly. I shook my head, staring at the horizon. "Not free."
Not yet.
"But I will be." He raised a brow. "What do you mean?" I looked back at the courthouse, at the prison vans carrying the Donovans away, at the memories of blood still etched into my hands. "They took 10 years of my life," I said, my voice steady, cold. "I'll spend the rest of mine making sure no one forgets what they did. That's my revenge." Daniel studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Then I'll be with you." For the first time, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. The past was over. The Donovans were finished. My father was gone. And me? I was no longer collateral. I was fire. And anyone who tried to cage me again would burn.